Hello, my name is Miriam May, and I'm the CEO of the Friends of the Arava Institute, and we're delighted to have you all with us. We ask that you put yourselves on mute if you are not on mute, and if you have questions, you are welcome to put them in the chat at any time. We will get to them after Jess has made her presentation. Jessica Schaeckermann is our welcome speaker today. She holds a degree in biology from Georg August University and the Leuphana University in Germany. Her doctoral studies in cooperation with the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, where she also did her postdoctoral research. In the past, she has worked for the German Hans Seidel Foundation in Jerusalem for an EU-funded partnership for peace cross-border project in cooperation with the Palestinian Wildlife Society for the protection and the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel. In 2008, she began working as a scientist at the Dead Sea and Arava Science Center, which has a long partnership and affiliation with the Arava Institute, and where her research includes long-term socio-ecological research and agroecology. She became a lecturer at the Arava Institute in 2020, where she now teaches the agroecology course. And in 2021, when Tarek Abu Hamed left his position as our academic director and became our executive director, Jessica was appointed the academic director of the Arava Institute. Please join me in welcoming Jessica, and I hand the mic and the presentation over to her.
Thank you, Miriam. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to see so many people on the screen here. I'm going to share my presentation now with you. I hope you can all see that. Let me know if not. So as Miriam already said, I teach agroecology, but I also research agroecology. And today I'm going to give you a very brief overview over two of my projects, which are actually working hand in hand. And I call it the flying squad because I'm working with bats and with birds, and I'm looking into their services that they give to agriculture in the Southern Arava. I made this the Halloween edition. I thought it fits very well because talking about birds and bats, and I'm giving you a little bit of a brief background about what I'm going to talk about, because I'm not sure all of you are familiar with agroecology, and if not, here you have a little bit of an introduction. So basically, we are dealing with agricultural ecosystems. So the human activity of agriculture is at the center of this ecosystem, and as a researcher, I'm interested at the ecosystem services that we are gaining from our ecosystem here in this agricultural ecosystem. What are the services that biodiversity and nature provides to the farmer and to the farm? So this is like the ecosystem service definition that I'm looking at. And one of the services, for example, is biological pest control. So if you have birds and bats that eat your insect pests in your fields, that's a service that you gain. So there are different kinds of ecosystem services that are known from literature, and some of them are relevant for agriculture, and some of them, some other things that we have there are disservices to agriculture, for example, pest damage. So we are like having this combination of research about services and disservices that we have in our agricultural ecosystem. Now, I did not invent that. It's not new to science to work with birds and bats in agriculture, and I'm just giving you a few examples so you see how relevant this topic is all over the world. For example, looking into birds, great tits have been researched to give services to apple growers in Europe, and researchers found that they really can reduce pest damage that is done by caterpillars to apples if the farmers helps the birds a little bit and puts them nest boxes there. So the birds need a lot of proteins when they are raising their youngs, so it's kind of a good idea to give them nesting sites, and then they can do a very nice cleaning service there for you. They're eating all your pests. I don't know if any of you are from Texas, but if you are, you're probably familiar with the Brazilian free-tailed bat, which is also a flying pest control agent, and farmers in Texas know them for the services that they are giving in cotton crops. And there have been many studies about this, and also people can really put a monetary value on the services that these animals are giving. Another example, this is from Indonesia. So you can see this is like really relevant for many, many places all around the world. And here in a study, the researchers actually looked into the combination of birds and bats and their services that they give to cacao farmers. So they found that if they exclude the birds and the bats from the crop and they can't access, the farmers lose 30% more of their crop than if the birds and bats have access. So what they found is that the service that is given has a value of $730 per hectare and year. So this is quite a lot of money. Now, when we're talking about biological control, it's not always just the same thing. So the biological control has different subsections, and one of them that you are probably all familiar with is the classical biological control, where someone would take a pest control agent. Let's say you're taking a lady beetle because you have an aphid problem, and you introduce this lady beetle into your ecosystem, and you make sure that it stays around and it sticks around and you have it there for a long time. Now, what I'm dealing with is called conservation biological control, because I do not introduce anything new. I'm working with the species which are around, and I'm trying to enhance their habitat, and I'm trying to figure out why the service is there but not good enough. What can we do to make it better? So why do I combine birds and bats in my research? It's pretty easy. It's a 24/7 control of pests. The birds are the day force and the bats are the night force. So if you have a moth that is destroying your crop, the birds will take care of the caterpillars walking around in the day, and the bats will take care of the moths flying around at night. So it just like enhances the control a lot. The other thing is the southern Arava is really located on one of the major flyways for migratory birds of the world. So if you can here look on the screen, I don't know if you see my small arrow, but if you see it, I'm pointing at the location of Eilat. If you don't see it, you can see Eilat written here. So this is where we are located, and you can see this is really a bottleneck for bird migration. So all the birds that go to Africa through this region will come through our area, and on their way back from Africa to Eastern Europe and Asia, they also have to go through this region again. Now you can see we are next to the Sahara Desert, so birds that are coming from Europe and going to Africa stop here because this is our last fueling station before they have to cross the Sahara, and on the way back the birds are exhausted because they just crossed the Sahara, so they come down and they have to fuel up, they have to eat, and they have to build up their fat reserves, and that they do by mainly eating proteins. They need a lot of proteins to build that up, and so this is a really great combination of having this big forces of birds coming through here in spring and in autumn, and these are exactly the seasons of growing the crops and exactly the peak seasons of our pests. So this is very well done by nature, and it can help the farmers a lot. We have 16 species of insectivorous bats here in the area. which are all insect eaters and which are local here. They are all coming from here, and they're all potential service givers, but never ever anyone really looked into that. So we thought, okay, let's combine it, let's have it both. We have quite a few pests in dates, and some of them are moths, for example. We have different kind of moth species, the lesser and the greater date moths, doing damage to date plantations in the area. Date plantations are the main crop here in the area grown. We also have other crops. I also work in other crops, but because of the time limit today, I will concentrate on the dates. So what we did is we looked into which bats and birds are actually present in the date plantations, and can we figure out what insects do they eat. So we wanted to see what kind of potential is there. Do they actually have a potential, or do they not come to the date plantations, and we are wasting our time here. And also we wanted to see, if they're coming, can we enhance their foraging activity somehow? Can we do some kind of habitat manipulations that the bats and the birds feel more welcomed in the date plantations? So the methods we actually used, where we are monitoring bats with bat detectors, birds with point counts, and we have help there from the International Birding and Research Center in Eilat. We did these monitorings in 3 kind of plantations in our preliminary study. There are more ongoing studies now, but what we concentrated on were organic date plantations, then organic date plantations with donkeys, and conventional date plantations. Now you may wonder, what is the impact of the donkeys and why are there donkeys in dates at all? So donkeys are great to take control over the weeds that are growing in date plantations, and so some organic growers use that because they can't use herbicides. Then we did some catching of bats and birds to collect their feces, because from the feces we can actually see what they're eating by doing a DNA analysis, which is called metabarcoding. And then we also looked into the habitat and into habitat manipulations. Now here you can see how it looks in the field. So this is me up there installing a bat detector. That's how it looks like. On the right side of the screen, you see a bat detector with an SD card. This is the machine. This is how it looks in the field under the date tree. And in the middle, you can see Noam Weiss, who's doing the data collection for the birds in the dates. This is how a point count looks like, just in case you were wondering. So you have your bird watcher in the middle, and he has some kind of radius around him. Usually it's like split into two different radii, and it depends on what kind of crop you're working in, what is your radius you are looking at, and where you collect the data. And why do I work with bird watchers? Because they can just identify the birds so much better than I can, even by sound. So Noam will stand there, he will hear something very, very quiet, I might not even know it, and he will write down, oh, this is this kind of bird. And I'm like always amazed by how they do that. Now, what did we find? We found that 91% of the species of the birds observed in the date plantations were from 7 different species. And what you can see here in this table is that we could actually tell which one of them would give what kind of service. So the ones marked in green, the lesser white-throat, the blackcap, and the graceful prenia, are pest control agents. They just eat insects. They just eat proteins from insects. So we know the only thing they do there is pest control. That's great for us. Now we have the ones which are more open to anything. They eat insects, but they also eat other things, and we put them as pest control and cleanup. Now, what is a cleanup? A cleanup is basically when you have leftover crop on the ground in your plantation, and the birds take care of that, which is also a service, because often the next generation of pests will develop in your leftovers, and that's not good for the farmers. So the cleanup by the birds is a welcome service. So for those of you who are not so happy to see a lot of graphs and tables, basically you have this little gray bird with the black head here in the corner, it's called a blackcap. They migrate from Africa to Europe, and on their way they snack on moss and date plantation. We saw them feeding on moss actually. Then we have the steppe buzzard as another example, migrates between Africa and Asia, and we have observed them eating the rhinoceros beetle. Now the rhinoceros beetle, you can see a picture of them here. They are doing damage to the roots of the date palms, actually not the beetle themselves, but their larvae. So they can kill a tree over the years. So the farmers are really afraid of them. They really don't like them in the date plantations. And as another example, I don't have a picture, but the Balkan warbler was also observed to feed on the lesser date moss. So we can actually see them feeding on these insects. What we also found is that the organic plantations had a lot of more birds. Less birds were attracted to the conventional orchard. So Eliphas here is the conventional orchard, and you can see the numbers. Neotsmada is the one with the donkeys under the trees, and Samar is the organic one with a lot of attached vegetation, because we don't have donkeys there. Now I can put you a picture so you get an idea how this looks like. So a lot of attached vegetation, and this is not even the highest kind now. It looks like this around the trees, that you have like this belt of green around the trees. Whereas if you go to other plantations, you don't have that, and all the undergrowth is gone. Now the birds like to have a diverse habitat, and so we have a lot of more birds in the plantations where we have all this green. So the impact of the habitat was quite obvious. We found most birds on the detached vegetation in North Smada, which is the place where we have the donkeys, but we have some small bushes. Then we have many birds on the attached vegetation in the date plantations of Samar, where we have all this green around the trees, and basically just less birds in general in all locations in Eliphas, which is our conventional way of growing dates and not organic. Which brings me now to back to the bats. If you were wondering how we can listen to the bats, well, we actually don't. We have this bat detector, and then when we use the SD card and we put it in the computer, there's a program which basically translates everything that was recorded to these kind of graphs. And then there are experts, and again, I'm working together with an expert, a professor called Kami Corrine, who is a bat expert here in the area. And we have 2 master students that are actually working with us on that. So they are the ones to analyze the data. So what we found is that we have 13 species out of the 16, which are actually actively foraging in date plantations. And we found really high foraging activities. So you can see that we had like nights with, this is per night, passes per night. So we had something between 500 on average, 400 on average, and it goes up to nearly 1,000 per night. So this is like not about abundance of bats, but this is like the feeding activity, how many times we recorded something going through on our bat detector. Another extra fun fact, this bat here on the side, the Asian Berber style bat, is actually a very rare desert bat, but it's more common in the date plantations. So it looks like it likes the date plantations, and it likes to forage there. Now, what do they eat? We collected feces samples from 6 bat species. Now you have to keep in mind it's very difficult to catch bats. Some of them fly very high, so it's very difficult for us to get to them. We catch them with mist nets, and actually not us, but our PhD student Eva did this, and she also is doing the DNA analysis with metabarcoding. And we found that at least that all of them fed on at least 2 pest species. Now, what are the pests? We have the lesser date mouse, I mentioned that, and we have 3 species of bats, at least out of like the 6 that we caught, that feed on the lesser date mouse. We have Hibzugo, which is a desert dwelling bat, and it's a very tiny bat. It's the smallest one in Israel. We have Aptesicus, also a desert bat, and he's specialized on moth, so it really makes sense that he's eating the lesser date mouse. And then we have Plecotus. We have sub-beetles also in the date plantations, which are doing damage to the farmers. We actually found four bat species feeding on them: Pipistrellus, Hypsugo, Eptesicus, and Autoneucterus. Sorry for that. So Pipistrellus is very common. It's a common bat in Israel, and it has a generalist diet. And we found that he's feeding on different kinds of agricultural pests, and he's also in different kinds of habitats. So he's not specialized on the desert. So he can act as a natural enemy in various agroecosystems, actually. Now, I talked about this rhinoceros beetle before, and I talked about the bird of prey that was actually feeding on the rhinoceros beetle, but we also found a bat that actually feeds on the rhinoceros beetle. And this is quite spectacular because this beetle is really big. It can be like 5 centimeters, no problem. But this little guy feeds on this beetle. It's a desert long-eared bat, and it's basically specialized on terrestrial arthropods, which means it doesn't usually catch things from the air, but it hovers over the ground and it picks up things from the ground. Now, his main food in our area are actually scorpions. And so he has absolutely no problem to feed on this beetle because he can handle scorpions. Now, habitat improvements, I told you we did some things, we did some manipulations in the sense of trying to make the habitat better for the different bats and also for the birds. So what we did is we put water and we put housing, because that's actually what they need. They have a lot of food, right? We have all these pests around, so we don't need to feed them. But the first thing bats need to do at night when they come out of their cave is drink. So if they have the water around, they will come, drink, and then after they drank, they will start foraging. So if the water is in the place where you want them to eat, it's actually great. And the other thing they need is a place to sleep, a place to stay. So when they go out of where they stayed in the day and they can have a drink and then forage, it's perfect for them. It's a great habitat. So we created drinking sites, and this was quite a project. So everyone came to help. You see the two people here. So the one digging actually is called Shelly. Shelly is a date farmer. This is Professor Kami Corinne. So yes, when it comes to field work, everyone has to help. And we are working with the farmers, and they are involved in all our projects, and it's all bottom-up projects. So the problems are brought to us by the farmers. We tested different sizes of drinking spots for the bats. That was our preliminary study. And we found out that yes, water really brings bats, and they were like, the numbers were increasing after we filled up the pools. We even could catch them on movement cameras drinking. And this is actually quite fun to see, because bats drink while flying. So they basically come, they dip, and they come back up, and that's how they drink. Now we are testing the pool impact on a bigger scale. You can see here our master student Yuval, and he is actually testing a lot more pools in a lot more places, and also testing this in relation to the moss abundance and so on. So there's a lot more going on, but again, not enough time to go into detail. Does water bring birds? Yes, we do think it does. We saw more birds around the sites where we had drinking spots, but these are preliminary data, and we are doing more data collection, more data analysis at the moment. Sorry. And then there were the bat houses. We are installed in different plantations. So one was in North Smadar, it's called, and the other one again in Samardates. Samardates was the main site for the pools. In spring 2020, we are regularly monitoring them. I just took the students from the Arava Institute that take the agroecology course to help me monitor the ones in Samar. It was quite interesting for them. And we know that they are known to become active just after 10 to 24 months. So there's still some time. But also we have another project in which we want to check different kinds of bed boxes, because these are the ones that we are checking now, the ones you are seeing here. They are very very simple, but we have building instructions for other bed boxes. And actually in the United States, there are lots of bed boxes. You are very advanced with that there. Here in this area, no one ever tested them for our desert beds. So we don't know what they like. We don't know if they would go to bed boxes or not, and what kind of bed boxes they would prefer. So we are trying things out. And actually this is supposed to be an intern project. So an intern of the Arava Institute could do that in the next spring semester and start testing out some bed boxes and trying to figure out which ones are actually good for our climate here, because we don't want the ones that overheat, that get too hot, because we don't want to have a heat trap for the beds. Now, one of the things that I always like to highlight, and I already mentioned it in the presentation, in our approaches, farmers are included in the scientific process from the beginning till the end. And we even talk to them before. We ask them, what are the things you need? What are the problems you have? What has been already done, and how can we help? So all my projects basically came to me through the farmers. And this is like nice, because I have them involved and I have them ask me questions, and they want to be updated all the time. And it gives them a feeling of ownership. And it also helps me a lot, because when I need heavy machinery, there's often like the willingness to like borrow me things for no cost and even help me in the field. And then afterwards, once we know what is helpful and what is going on, we can give the results to the farmers, and they can go and use them in the field. Now, this is my last slide. I want to thank you for your attention. And if you like, I put you some links for 2 Padlets here. There's more information about birds and bats in agriculture, not just in our region, but also it's actually something I use for the students. So you're very welcome to have a look.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you for staying up this evening and working with us. We really appreciate it. We had a few questions, a couple of them about water pools. One of them is, these drinking spots how are they kept from like it's a desert. Even in this time of year, it's quite warm. Plus it has cool, dry nights. How do you keep evaporation from being a major issue? And also, how do you keep mosquitoes, the other side of having standing pools of water, from becoming an issue?
Okay, yes, actually, evaporation always is a problem in this region. So what we do is we use recycled water, and we have a drip irrigation system there. So the pools are being refilled. They're very flat because the beds don't need them to be very deep. So we don't have to put a lot of water in there. And also we keep them full mainly in the seasons when they are, first of all, interesting for the bats because it's the hot seasons, and also when the farmers need the service, so when the farmers need the bats to be around. Otherwise, the bats can also go and drink in all kinds of sewage ponds and so on that we have here. So we know that they go drink there. So mainly these pools are for keeping them around in the plantation at the time of the year when they are needed. Mosquitoes is a major issue, and we have some different solutions for that. For example, we are using chlorine solutions, but we are using them in the morning. So we put them in the morning. Over the day, the chlorine dismantled by the sun, and in the evening, the concentration is so low that it can't harm the bats or wouldn't keep them away. That was one of the things we tested. The other thing we did is we collected neem tree leaves, and we actually put neem tree leaves into the pools, and this worked so much better than the chlorine. So
I'm sorry, what kind of tree leaves?
Neem. It's called neem.
Oh, neem, like neem oil. I get it.
Exactly. So this is known from Africa, that people put these leaves in standing water pools to have make sure that there are no mosquitoes, and that was brought to me by another researcher. And then I tried it out, and I had like different setups where I tried like some with chlorine, some with neem tree leaves, the leaves, not the oil. And the bats didn't mind, they still came to drink. And I had to put just like a handful of leaves, and it kept the mosquitoes away. There wasn't a problem. It's
I think I
also
want to try that in my backyard.
we can try that, yeah.
Exactly. Maybe we all want to try it in our backyards or standing water things. So you mentioned that bats sort of skim by, to just sort of fly by. I have a question that no one has asked. So there's a bird watching society in Israel. Have they kind of gotten engaged with your work and come and help you out and look for your birds for you?
Well, so I'm connected directly to the Bird Watching Society here in Israel because my husband, Noam Weiss, who is the head of the International Birding of Research Center, and my husband is like one of the main people in this Bird Watching Society. I've also been like part of the society for quite a while because I worked with birds for a long time. So basically, yeah, the Bird Watching Center is helping us with the research. They are great partners in a lot of proposals that we have, and sure, whenever there is something in the plantations and in the fields that could be interesting for me, people like report that to me. Yes.
So do you worry about bat-borne illness, whether that's rabies, corona, whatever, and with the exception of that one with the big ears, bats are not so cute in my personal estimation. But is there worry about disease and bat-borne illness?
No, not really, because these bats really are mainly located in the caves in the desert or in the date plantations foraging. So as long as we are not really getting in contact with them, there's no problem. I've never heard anyone being, I don't know, attacked by a bat or anything. So people basically just stay away from the bats, and the bats stay away from the people. The only bats that do come around are the fruit bats, because they come and eat from the fruit trees that you have in the kibbutzim. But then again, they are not really animals that come close to people. So no, there's no major concern. I would never let anyone handle bats that does not have a permit to do so, and you do need a special permit from the National Parks Authority to handle bats and to catch bats, and that's what we have. And we have trained people, and all of them are vaccinated against rabies, for example.
I will say that we have a friend of the Friends of Arava and the Arava Institute who says that bats are very much misunderstood. And so maybe this is a good example of,
I think he's totally right. They're very much misunderstood. And I think they're also very cute. Like, I'm sorry that you don't like them. I find them very I find them very cute and inspiring. And
well, it's amazing how small they are. I think that's really very impressive, that they were like not that much bigger than your thumb, let's say, is sort of shocking. And that they can be, shall we say, natural insecticides, that we don't have to rely on chemicals. Has this been expanding from research to actualization on more kibbutzim? I mean, I like those names of those kibbutzim. I know them all. They're all in your neck of the woods there. We sometimes stay on there when we're on the Israel ride or visit or buy their products. Is this spreading? Are the ones like Eliphaz that is not using this learning from the Oats Madar or Samar, et cetera, and so forth? And what is Keturah itself doing?
So everyone knows about these projects. I'm very much a people person, so I'm going out there and I'm talking to everyone. We have a lot of events with the farmers. We have a lot of lectures with the farmers. We have just in December now we will have the Open Day of Agriculture, where I'm also working for the Agriculture Research and Development Center down here. That's actually where the projects are going through. They have an experimental farm. We are doing tours there. We're talking to the people about all our different experiments and so on. So yeah, all the farmers basically know about all of these projects, and they call me the bat lady or the bird lady. So I don't really I don't know. I don't. You're the bat lady, or you're the bird lady. Depends.
We'll call you our academic director. So
yeah, I don't think anyone is gonna get used to that one.
we will. And so we really want to thank you, Jessica, for taking your time. I know between your research and your studies and being our academic director, you are busy, and it is the evening, and we really appreciate your giving us your time and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And we appreciate you all, our guests and audience, being here and learning from Jessica with us. And we hope you get to visit our date plantations and our bats and our birds sometime soon. Thank you again.
Thank you everyone for listening.